There, my name is Rebecca Holman, and my case study is focusing on analyzing whale shark movement in response to remotely sensed sea surface temperature and ocean productivity, and the implications of that for future whale shark conservation efforts. I have you do this case study in Google Earth Engine to visualize some data trends in whale shark movement patterns and try to interpret them and make some conclusions about what those visual trends might mean. So just a little background on whale sharks. Whale sharks live in warm tropical waters worldwide. They have a global distribution. They live in coastal waters off of over 100 countries. So this can make conservation efforts quite challenging because it requires a ton of international cooperation, and every individual country has very different standards for marine protected areas and for fishing practices, and so on. And so this can make conservation efforts for whale sharks extremely difficult. The other thing that makes conservation for whale sharks difficult is that there's very little known about whale shark behavior and whale shark ecology and physiology. So there's not much known about why whale sharks move in the way that they move, why they migrate at certain times and why they aggregate in certain points, what encourages them to feed, what encourages them to mate, etc. And another thing that makes whale shark data hard to come by is it's hard to physically find, tag, and track whale sharks. They are quite elusive. There's not very many that live together. They're usually solitary unless they come to aggregate in certain sites. It's hard to track whale sharks, and there's not much known about them. So all of this makes conservation quite difficult, let alone even finding research about whale sharks quite difficult. So the kind of point of this case study is to point out that remotely sensed satellite data can be an effective way to learn things about whale shark behavior. So there's four main objectives of this case study that I've created. The first is to learn more about remotely sensed satellite data and how to manipulate it, specifically in terms of sea surface temperature and chlorophyll A concentrations. Those both come from the same satellite mission called GCOM. So just learning about what that data means and how to use it. The second objective is learning about GIS data. So the data I have you use in this case study is GPS location of tagged whale sharks. So just learning about how GIS data is used and how to manipulate that. The third objective is becoming familiar with Google Earth Engine as a tool. It's a very, very powerful tool, and just getting a little bit more familiar with using Google Earth Engine and coding in Google Earth Engine, manipulating data within Google Earth Engine. And then the last objective is to learn about existing world protected areas, specifically marine protected areas, and their potential effectiveness at conserving whale sharks. One second. Let's see if that'll load. There we go. Sorry about that. This is the concept map that I created for my case study. Here you can see ocean productivity and sea surface temperature. These are the two variables that we're looking at that are potentially influencing whale shark behavior. I pulled this from a data by Williamson et al., which looks at over 50 different potential indicators for whale and shark behavior and said that these were the two that were the most strongly correlated with behavior. That's why I chose these to look at in our data sets. So these two indicate large whale shark populations, and then we're also going to look at this branch, which is marine protected areas should theoretically create large whale shark populations. I don't know why these are not showing, I'm sorry, but we'll be able to see this image later on as well, and I'll make sure to point that out. But these are the two indicators that I chose, sea surface temperature and chlorophyll A. Again, I mentioned that those were from a paper, those as the most important indicators for behavior. This is what chlorophyll A looks like when it's mapped. It's from from this dark purple to red color, with purple being very low values, red being very high values. This is in milligrams per meter cubed. Essentially, high values of chlorophyll A mean that there are high levels of plankton, because plankton create chlorophyll A. As a byproduct, chlorophyll A gives off a pigment, which is why it's able to be picked up through satellite imaging. And that means that there's high levels of plankton in that area. And usually that's a really good indicator for ocean productivity. So if there's a lot of plankton in an area, there's a lot of marine life in an area, there's a lot of nutrients in an area. So that's an indicator for high levels of chlorophyll A would be a place that a whale shark would likely be, or other large marine life would likely be. Sea surface temperature, it goes from dark blue to red from 0 to 30 degrees Celsius. It's pretty self-explanatory. It is just the temperature of the ocean at the surface level in Celsius. And that, again, temperature is a thing that influences how large marine life moves around at certain times of the year. So I have you use 4 data sets. 3 of them, 1, 2, and 4, exist already in a Google Earth Engine catalog. So when you code it, you're just referencing an already existing data set, and then from there you're manipulating it. The third, this data set right here, number 3, is actually doesn't exist in Google Earth Engine. It's a CSV file from a paper by Hoffmeyer et al. That is freely available to download. So for your module, you're going to take the CSV file and upload it to Google Earth Engine yourself and create your own data set. So this one is a little bit more intensive, a little bit harder, because we are manipulating the data and creating our own data set. But both of these, I said already, come from a GCOM mission satellite, which is a microwave satellite, a microwave radiometer. It has a spatial resolution of roughly 4,000 meters, which is pretty fine scale in terms of global use. I actually was looking at other data sets from MODIS and NOAA, other satellites, but they had a much broader spatial resolution, which is why I decided to go to this. And again, I already told you about the dark blue to red and what those mean, and both of these I have you filter into summer data and winter data, and have you filter to daytime only, because satellites are taking images 24 hours a day, but we want to look at only the daytime images. And then the World Protected Polygon Map is a data set that uses the latitude and longitude points of boundaries of existing protected areas, and it maps it as polygons so we can visualize protected areas as a map layer. So just a little bit of background on Google Earth Engine. It's a very powerful tool. You need to make a Google Earth Engine account for this case study. You can do that freely with the Oregon State email address as an educational use. So here, there's kind of 3 different areas that you work in, here, and here. This is an area where you, mostly for the case of this study, you're just uploading assets. So this is where you're going to upload our CSV file with the GPS data on the whale sharks. Here is mainly where you're going to actually run and write code. And then here is where you can also import files, and it tells you a task manager, so it gives you real time as it's running. And if you print any values or ask it to print any data, it'll show up here. This is actually visualizing the Earth, and this box down here. And this box here is an important layer box. This is where you're going to see all your different map layers that we add, and you can click them on and off. So in this case study, I ask you to do a couple visual analyses of the data. Essentially, you're doing 4 different analyses. The first 2 being looking at a singular whale shark, the second 2 looking at multiple whale sharks. So I have you I have you code a singular whale shark's data and color each different date as a different colored dot on the map. And so you can look at one whale shark's movement over time based on the different colors. And then you're going to look at that relative to sea surface temperature and to chlorophyll A levels and try to interpret when this whale shark moves and what could be causing it to move, things like that. Then you're going to also code with multiple whale sharks. I think it's 10, could be a few more, that you're going to color each different whale shark a different color. So multiple dates for every whale shark will all be the same color, but you'll be able to see where one whale shark moves relative to how another whale shark moves. And then you can look at the group as an aggregate. And then you're going to compare that to sea surface temperature and chlorophyll A and try to interpret trends of how a group of whale sharks move and why. And then you're also going to look at the group of whale sharks movements and compare it to current marine protected areas to try to interpret if those current areas are effective for conservation. I go into a much more detailed step-by-step of exactly how to code all of this and how to run it in Google Earth Engine, because it can be very complicated, especially if you've never used Google Earth Engine before. And I made that in a separate video and I uploaded that as well. That's a much longer video. It's very detailed and it explains why everything is happening, what all of the trends mean, and exactly how to code and run some stuff. So if you get lost, I would highly recommend watching that one, as it gives it very detailed. But here are the overarching results of the case study and kind of briefly what they mean. So this first map is looking at an individual whale shark. So this is all the same whale shark, and every point is a different date with a different color. So this is data from July to September. These are July. This is going over here to September. It kind of moves like this. In this map layer that you're seeing, the colors is sea surface temperature in the summer. So you can see during the summer months, this whale shark kind of hangs out off the coast of Louisiana. It's staying in this medium orange color range here, and it's pretty consistent. She doesn't move a ton. Now we move into winter. So now we're looking at October data here. So as October goes on, this whale shark is moving down like this to Mexico to Cuba. This is winter temperatures now back here. So you can see that it went from really pretty dark orange to red in the Gulf of Mexico to now mostly yellow. So as you can see, this whale shark is moving south to stay probably in this medium orange color range. You can interpret that more. You can watch the other video to have me explain a little bit more about these trends and why. But for the sake of this video, I'm just going to do a brief overview of these results. So now we're looking at chlorophyll A concentration map. This again is the same singular whale shark data in the summertime. This is chlorophyll A in the summer. Blue, dark blue being low levels, red being high levels. So you can see red is really high along the coast, and mostly open ocean is dark blue. So again, this whale shark is kind of off the coast of Louisiana and Alabama. She in the summer seems to be in this green to like light blue fringe area, and this seems to be the sweet spot for chlorophyll A that this whale shark wants to be in. As you go into our winter data, the whale shark again is migrating south. The chlorophyll A levels change. It gets to be a little bit lighter in the open ocean in the winter data, and so this whale shark is able to move, probably more moving with temperature than chlorophyll A, but seems to still want to stay in this light blue trending area. Here we have all of the whale shark data. Every different color is a different whale shark. You can see that over here. These are all different numbers, unique IDs given to a whale shark. And so now we can kind of see trends of this whole group. So we kind of they kind of seem to aggregate in a similar area. This guy maybe goes off a little bit more than some of the others. This is light pink was the one that we were looking at individually. You can see this one comes to Cancun and Cuba, which none of the other ones quite come that south. So that's interesting. But so you can take all this data and play with different layers and play with different filtering by different dates and try to interpret it as in other ways beyond what I ask you to do. But this map is mostly showing the world protected areas versus total whale shark as a group. So the world protected areas are these light green polygons mapped over. So you can see in the Gulf of Mexico, there's almost no protected areas. I mean, you have some here along the Florida Keys and in between Florida and Cuba. You have a really big section here off the coast, eastern coast of the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. But for the most part, there's none in this inner Gulf of Mexico, and that's where most whale sharks are hanging out. So interpret that as you will. I explain a lot more in that longer video, but I ask you questions in the case study about what these trends mean and what these different indicators like chlorophyll A, what that really means, and so on. So if you get stuck, I suggest again watching that longer video. I go into explaining everything and why in very excruciating detail. So that's it for here. If you have any questions about what I did, where I got this whale shark data from, how I wrote the code, anything, please feel free to send me a message and I will gladly answer to the best of my ability. Thank you.